Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I am so glad to be here. My promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and help you stay social. Because after all, don't you want to be the business that everybody's talking about? I know I do. And I just want to I am so stoked to have Mike Ulmer with me. Welcome, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Liz. Thank you so much for having me. We tried a couple times and I couldn't make it work. So I'm thrilled to be doing this today with you.
Absolutely. And so tell my audience a little bit about your business, what you do, and who you serve.
Great. So that's obviously such a great question. My business is helping people write their business books. As you know, business books are just the greatest thing for brand recognition, for brand authority, to understand your story, what it is you do, why it matters, how you got there. And it works for you 24/7. A business book really it's really become almost an essential thing, as the podcast has become. My background is in journalism, so I've had about 10,000 interviews. So what I do with my clients is, whatever the package you are, you get me for a while. And you'll probably get tired of me because I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And we're going to figure out what your story is, what that powerful story is. Maybe it's a lifetime event. Maybe it's a piece of information you have about your business that nobody else has. And then we're going to take that and either I'm going to coach you through writing this book with a blueprint, or I'm going to help you write it myself rather. We sort of do both ends of that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have the story you need to tell every day of your life. And what I like to tell clients is the clarity that you're going to get, because we're going to work on it. The clarity that you're going to get about where you've been, what you hadn't considered, where you want to go in your business, what your business means to you, the newest elements of your business. That's worth the price of admission. I'll throw the book in for free.
Wow. So I have a question for you. There's probably a lot of people out there thinking right now, it's like, well, why should I write a business book? So could you answer that question? Why should someone write a business book?
Well, I guess the first reason is because most people won't. And the fact that you will do something that nobody else does. Books are really funny. And I've lived on this for a lifetime. They carry an inordinate amount of prestige. And I'm glad they did, because I've been doing this for many years. I've written 20 books and had 10,000 interviews. When you write a book, just the fact that you have a book makes you a brand leader. And you don't have to, like 95% of the people impacted by your book will never actually read the book. Just the fact that you've done that speaks to a confidence and a knowledge of your industry and a confidence in your ability that just sort of permeates everything you do. But the other thing is, as I mentioned, I get a lot of people tell me it's like therapy, that there are elements in their life, things that had happened, they never really kind of figured out how they fit in the big picture, influences that they had, things that people told them, events in their lives. All these things brought them to a perfect point where they're the perfect person to sort of deliver this service to people, but they don't know how to tell that story. So telling the story is foundational. But what you get from figuring out the story, that's also really, really powerful. It imbues a new enthusiasm in you for the work that you do.
Is it a hard process? And how long does it take?
Well, it's not a hard process unless you think someone asking you questions is hard. Because we could do it in 15 minutes. You could say, this event happened to me and this changed the course of my life. Or sometimes so one of the questions is this. I'll ask you this, Liz. What is the one thing you know about social that if you were sitting at a bar and I asked you, hi, Liz, what's the one thing I needed to know about social? The one thing nobody knows. What would you tell me?
That you're not going to get a client right away from doing social.
Nice. That it's not like that at all. So how does social work? Is it sort of like drip coffee, or drip, or how do you accelerate it?
I love that drip coffee. I think I'm going to use that in one of my posts this week.
Well,
Drip. It is, the thing is and I don't want to make this about me. So
that's okay.
With that being said, I'll answer that really quickly. A lot of people out there think if they post one time that they're going to get a client, sort of like that whole thing. If they build it, they will come.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe in the field of dreams they came, but no, you really have to be out there, because like if I'm out in person networking, right? If I'm in person, like talking to you, the know, like, and trust factor, it brings us closer together. But online, that know, like, and trust factor takes a little bit of time to build. So I love drip coffee. That works. So anyway, so it's not so hard. You ask some questions. It depends on how clear we are, is how long it's going to take. So tell me about, what is the shortest time it's ever taken to write, to work with somebody on writing the book, and what was the longest? Like give me that
sure.
time.
So some of them, sometimes it's taken, I did a book called The 50-Year-Old Millennial. We were 5 hours into it, and I was talking to the client's name is Mark Catapult. He believes in servant leadership. Mark practices it, and it's really important to him. So the book was about servant leadership, but servant leadership is 50 years old, and it's not terribly sexy, right? So how do we sort of figure this out? So I'm talking to Mark. We're talking about millennials, and I said, everyone's bitching about millennials, and Mark said, why should they? They're absolutely right. They had the values that we had. They want a transparent career path. They want, no bullshit in the office in terms of politics and gender issues. They want to know where they stand at all times. They want consistent feedback, and they want to know where they are on the loop. And if you do that, you'll help them. And so why wouldn't you do that? And so my answer to Mark was, Mark, you sound like you're a 50-year-old millennial. And thus was born the 50-Year-Old Millennial. It's really hard to sort of know where it will come from. Every book is a journey. So, Elizabeth, what I tell my clients is, if you wrote the book you thought you were going to write, you wrote the wrong book.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, because it's the whole point of it is it's a process of digging and figuring it out and getting and looking back on stuff and getting an idea. But as I say, sometimes it's just one idea. Can I give you an example? It's a kind of a fictional.
Sure, I would love an example. That would be great.
It's kind of a fictional example. So let's say you were an estate lawyer, and let's put you in the U.S. And time after time after time, you would have people coming into your office whose only mandate was to avoid the inheritance tax. People hate paying taxes. I think American folks in particular hate paying taxes. So, they do crazy stuff, Liz. They make someone else the beneficiary. They move property around. They do all this stuff because they just don't want to pay the inheritance tax, So what often happens is their estate is a mess. And that creates lots of infighting and lots of destructive stuff and really a lot of negative consequences. Liz, what do you think the percentage of people in the U.S. who upon dying, their estate faces an inheritance tax? Just give me a number. I know you can't. No, just throw me a number.
What's the question that... I heard the first part, dying, but what was the rest of it?
So, of 100 deaths, how many of those do you think would incur an inheritance tax?
Probably, I would say a good 65%.
Right, 0.5.
Why is that? People are all that prepared?
Well, they should be. The inheritance tax is such that you have to be really, really bad at it to pay it.
Okay, all right.
Your financial planning will get you free of it. So what people are doing, because they think the same as you did, 65% of people have to pay it. Almost nobody has to pay it. 0.5, like half of 1% have to pay it.
I would be that half of 1%.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But the point is that so what's your book about? The book is Don't Ruin Your Family for a Tax You'll Never Have to Pay.
Right? I love that.
And so that's a piece of information. So if I was talking to an estate planner and had that same conversation, said, Liz, estate planner, what's that one thing that people won't know? You would say, Liz, people are always worried about, paying estate tax. They wreck their families over something they're never going to have to pay. Well, then we're there, right? Then we're there because we know what that hook of that book is. Because every book has to have three things. It has to have a proposition, right? The proposition is like the 4-hour work week or time management for mortals or any of those great titles. Quit, that new book, Quit, which looks really great. these are very simple propositions. And when you're walking by that cover, it's going to twist your head around because you want to see it. You want to see what they're talking about. 4-hour work week. Who wouldn't want to pick up a book about a 4-hour work week? It's genius. It's genius. So that proposition is super, super important. But then the backstory that led the person to the proposition, because we need to know that there's evidence. We need to know that someone reached this conclusion, walked the long miles, and the more miles, the better. If he quit his job if she quit her job to create this product, and she was poor for 5 years and maxed out her line of credit, and then finally caught on with a big sale, that's the person we want because they've done the miles. So the backstory is super, super, super important. It's like Warren Buffett, right? He had a subscription to the Wall Street Journal when he was 13. He had his first stocks at 11. It makes sense when you look at the big story, who the guy turned out to be. So the backstory is super, super, super powerful. And then tips. Don't bring people all this way. Don't give them a great idea. Don't give them a great backstory and then leave them without advice. So lots and lots and lots of advice. And those are the 3 elements of any great business book. And
I love that. I love that. And, it's funny because I think that people, when they're writing on their own, they make it harder than it is.
Yeah.
And I think, so, when we think about, I've written a book, I've written 2 books actually,
yeah.
And I'm actually writing a personal book right now, but, so it's a little different. And I'm, every once in a while I have something, I call it writer's block because I'm such a creator.
Yeah.
To have somebody that will coach you through it and then just, ask the right questions that will stimulate, oh, well, yeah, if I would give this advice, it's absolutely brilliant. So, I'm sure everybody asks you this, but it's like, well, what is something like this? What will it cost me?
Oh, so if I'm going to coach you through it, it's $6,000 US, and what that gets you is a blueprint. That gets you me, basically, and we figure that thing out. And then I give you that blueprint. I give you that proposition. What that great proposition is: don't ruin your house for your family for a tax that you won't pay. And then I'll also give you we'll talk about your backstory that led you to that, and then we'll talk about the advice that you would give, and it's a blueprint. And then I'll give you back a transcript of all the words that you said and some more ideas. And for the 100 days, because we do this over 100 days, for the 100 days, you can call me anytime, day or night. You pay up front because I want you to have skin in the game. But for that 100 days, you and I are working together every day if you want to. I'll bother you so much that you will come to despise me. That's when I know. That's when I know I've made my money. When you go, I can't talk to this guy one more time. That's when I know I've done the right thing for you.
Nice. So this is the part of the interview, okay, that we're going to get a little bit deeper and a little bit more real. So
Sure.
Tell me what you like about being in business for yourself.
Oh, I really love it. I had no idea. I was sort of the accidental businessman. I was a reporter, and I always thought I was going to work for the same newspaper for my whole life. I was a kid that read Sports Illustrated I had boxes of them. And everything I wanted to do came true. I wanted to cover the Toronto Maple Leafs, which are a big deal here. And I wanted to be a sports writer that traveled the world. And I wanted to work for major newspapers. And I did. I accomplished every goal. It never occurred to me that there was another style of life. But then newspapers, as you know, they're really on the way out. They're legacy media. And if you're walking around in newspapers now, you're walking around under the weight of a dying business. So I went to work for the Maple Leafs and the Raptors and the people that own that team for a while, enjoyed that. And then my time ended there. And so I started looking at business, and I realized there was this ecosystem that I had never considered. All these people were not sitting around waiting for a job. They were creating their own. And they were going and risking and doing all the stuff that's involved in that. And I really quickly, having been sort of stripped of that life where I had a big job in a big building, I realized how tenuous and brave that was. And I wanted to learn more about it. So I started going into business organizations. I joined Business Network International. I spoke to a lot of people. And what I found was my skill was really an outlier because these interesting, amazing people who were really accomplishing what they did, they had no idea how to present what was important to them. their story. They couldn't tell you why they were doing what they did, but in 10 minutes of speaking with me, sometimes they could. And so the idea of being on my own, which is really, really powerful for someone who's always believed they just wanted to work at a bank, a newspaper, an institution, is liberating and also frightening, and all those things combined. And I have nightmares now. Not that I'm not going to get a sale or write a book. I have nightmares that I'm back in my old life. That I have to write a story right now. And because I love this one so much.
Wow. And it's a lot of really, really great answer. And, we all know, like we both know that, a lot of like our friends and maybe some of our family and some colleagues think it's really cool that we own our own business. But we both know that, there is some struggle when it comes to running our own business, and especially in today's world. What would your number one struggle be in today's world?
Oh, that's so great. I think one thing I've always found with business people is they can't understand why people aren't buying their product, because they know they've assembled something that's really, really, really good. And they know that if the person, if I could call a person, their prospect, bought their product, it would immeasurably improve their life. And yet people don't buy it. And people don't buy it for whatever reasons, they don't buy it. That amazes me. Sometimes I speak to someone and I can't believe they're not going forward with a project which I know would help them. And of course, it's completely their call. But I think that's the biggest challenge, when you know you have something that's going to help someone, but for whatever reason, they don't do it. And I think that frustration is really, really a common one across all realms of business. You find this voice inside you screaming, listen, I can help you. Why don't we do this? And for whatever reason, the prospect doesn't. So I find that to be a real challenge.
Yeah. So, what one piece of advice that you would give an aspiring business owner?
Well, I would give an aspiring business owner a warning that it's extraordinarily lonely, that you aren't in the herd anymore. Most of us were envisioned lives where we were in a herd, whether it was a bank building or a newspaper office or an advertising agency. Most of us envisioned ourselves in the herd. And when you're an independent business person, you're not in the herd. You haven't got the protection of the herd. And so, horses are herd or prey animals. The reason they can run so fast is that they know that there's stuff out there that can kill them. And a horse will always, if frightened, a wild horse will always run 1.25 miles because the horse understands that a mountain lion will give up at 1 mile. And so the horse outside the herd always recognizes the danger it's in. And if you're in someone who's new in business, you haven't got the herd to depend on. Now, just because you don't have the herd to depend on doesn't mean that you're not smart or able or any of those things. It just means that it's going to be a little lonely.
Yeah. But, what I always encourage people to do is to network and make sure that they're collaborating with people and they're in some kind of group where they can talk to other people like themselves. So because you are a journalist and because you are a writer, I'm sure you have a favorite book out there, favorite business book. What would be your favorite business book that really encouraged you and helped you move forward in your life?
My favorite business book, and this one is so easy, it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that book is genius. And the book is really, it's kind of a secular recitation of the New Testament, right? It really is. It's about being your brother's keeper and act as you would like to have acted upon. And yet it is so smart. It is so smart because nothing has changed. If you look at our political climate, or your political climate, the one thing that Dale Carnegie said above all is that you cannot change someone's mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And isn't that so? Because you can have the most compelling arguments. I'm sure both sides of the political spectrum feel that. They cannot understand, as I was saying about sales, they cannot understand how the person across the table cannot understand what to them is so patently obvious.
Yeah.
And And that is such a profound truth. And that book is so smart. It was never more true than it was today, and it'll be even more true tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's a very old business book. I mean, people, you know, I don't know any business entrepreneur that loves to read that has not read that book. I've pretty much never met a person that has not read the book. So great book, great piece of
literature. A great one also, if I can jump on the second one, it's the E-Myth by
yes, that's good. Yeah, don't elaborate on that though, because you only get one book.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I want to, you had so much really golden nuggets to share with us today. And I would love if somebody resonated with you today, or they have been toying with the idea of writing a business book, for, maybe the last 5 years or so, and they didn't even get to do it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
How would they get in touch with you?
Well, that's easy. It's MikeUlmer.com. And
awesome.
MikeUlmer.com. And if they get in touch with me, I have my own writing book is called Show and Tell Writing. And just for getting in touch with me, I'll send them an audio version of it. And at the very least, they can have a better traffic jam for an hour.
That's so kind and generous of you. Thank you so much. So, everyone, I just want to, first of all, thank Mike for being a super guest today. And until next week, this is the Biz Gone Social Podcast. And I will see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social Podcast. Find us on Instagram at Biz Gone Social for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.